they didn't give their babies away. They were coerced into parting with their children. And they regretted it, most of them regretted it all their lives. When I was 5 days old, the doctor persuaded her to give me up, so I was taken from her at 5 days old and taken to an orphanage. My adopted parents and my family never did anything to make me feel different, but it was just something in me, and I think this is something in all adopted people. She wrote letters that are in my possession now, at the time of my birth. And in one of the letters, she's expressing clearly that she didn't want to give me up. I remember my mother telling me about these letters, and I asked her, well, have you got them? Where are they? And she burned them.
Was she doing it out of protection?
She did it all out of protection, but she didn't realise that by lying to me and being dishonest to me, that this is what screws you up mentally, you know, not having access to the truth. So I thought, no matter what I find, even if she doesn't want to know me, I'm going to find out who I am. I was watching Coronation Street with Karen, Shaun's sister, and there was a telephone call. Shaun's been arrested on serious drugs charges. I turned to Karen, and then all of a sudden we just broke down and cried and just got hold of each other and hugged each other and just sat on the couch crying.
I got the charges. I heard what they were. My bloody eyes were bulging out. They came round the corner and said, "We fucked."
My stomach just sank slowly, more and more as we got closer and closer. It was the thoughts of visiting your child in prison, especially such a promising child. It's not what you think, you know, when you've got your children through university and grown up. It's not what you think is going to happen.
Here we are in the studio for the first time. We have got my parentals and...
Parental. What's a parental?
So, how this is going to be structured today. My mum, as you can see, she has accomplished a lot by getting this book published after spending decades writing it. It is the true story of her search for her natural birth mother, because my mum ended up in a situation of forced adoption. Back then, if you had a baby out of wedlock, you burned in hell. And the priests would tell you, the mums, give the baby up, or else you will burn in hell. Even though the mums, quite often, as in my mum's case, did not want to give the baby up. So first half is going to set the table for the story of the blue plastic cow. And then the second half is going to be having a son in Arizona prison. That'll be the second half. I'll just read the back of the book because I think it really gives a good description. Based on a true story. This is the tale of 3 strong women. Barbara, who as a child was given a blue plastic cow that would later change her life forever. Florrie, who adopted a baby to replace the child she had lost. Carol, forced to give up her daughter by an unforgiving society. Growing up in a loving northern working class family based on the banks of the River Mersey, Barbara felt that she was different. After accidentally discovering that she had been adopted, she was only given a part of the story, As a teenager, unable to deal with the shock of what she had learned, she rebelled against her parents, finding solace in the exciting 1960s Liverpool music scene, spearheaded by the Beatles. Decades later, Barbara discovered a tear-stained letter from her birth mother, containing heartbreaking words that would send her on a challenging 26-year quest to find Carol. Wow. So, my mum's book is now available in audio. All the links will be in the description box below this video if you want to check that out. It's very highly rated, much more highly rated than all of my books. and Jen, who runs Boom and Jen, Organic Cotton Clothing, the links will be in the description box as well, including Instagram. All right, Mum. So, who was Carol?
Carol was my birth mother. I don't really like using the term birth mother, so from now on I will call her Carol. And my adopted mother was Florrie, so I'll call her Florrie. So Carol worked in the Land Army after World War II, and she worked on a farm in Cheshire, and that's where she met my father, who was the farmer's son, and his name was Thomas, and they got together. They had a relationship that lasted 2 years. Carol got pregnant, and Thomas's mother, who was a very strong Methodist, who had 12 children, arranged a marriage. So Carol and Thomas were to be married, and I would have lived happily ever after on the farm, maybe.
And I wouldn't have been born.
With the cows.
With the cows, yeah. But Thomas called the wedding off 3 days before. Right, so how she must have felt, how Carol must have felt. So, and I then was born in what was a workhouse, the Jericho Hospital in Manchester. And it was 1947, before the NHS had been set up. So, yes, I was born in a workhouse. And Carol went on then.
She reinvented herself, didn't
What?
she?
No. What happened to me? Carol, after I was born, she worked for a doctor. I don't know the whole story, but she worked for a doctor and his wife, still in the north of England. And when I was 5 days old, the doctor persuaded her to give me up. So I was taken from her at 5 days old and taken to an orphanage.
So, what was the family's reaction then if this wedding had been arranged by Thomas's family, did you say? And then Thomas is the one who's causing... He's jilting at the last minute after his family's arranged.
Well, he was thrown out of the farm, remember, wasn't he? He was thrown away
Yeah,
from the farm.
yeah.
Was he? Oh, wow.
His mother threw him out, didn't she?
Yes, his mother threw him out. Yes, and I remember him telling me later that one time he went back to the farm and his brother come out with a shotgun to chase him off.
He'd had a few pints. He said.
So the family sided with Carol
Yes.
then, did they? The family sided with Carol.
His
Own family.
His own family must have sided with Carol. From what he told me in later years, they all liked Carol. She was intelligent, lively. She got on really well with them all. His mother particularly liked her, and his mother's sister, whose name was Barbara, and that's who I was called after.
Right.
His mother's sister. But on reflection, if they had sided with her so much, why didn't they
I was just about to ask that.
help
very paternal.
her
Yeah.
with
Blood's going to be thicker than water, isn't
why
it?
didn't they
Surely.
support her to have me and keep her in the
So
family?
who did she initially turn to?
I've no idea.
Did you say there was no social services or anything back then?
There was social services. Yes, because I actually have records of my birth that were written at the time of my birth. They're nothing like as they are now, but they're quite brief. But there was quite a bit of information on
There was.
them,
The
wasn't
social
there?
work had stuff, didn't she?
Yeah, and so all I know is what was written on that report, you see.
What's the report?
And the report says that she didn't want to give me up at the time of my adoption. She did not want to give me up. She refused to sign the adoption certificates on numerous occasions, it says in the report. But obviously, eventually, she did sign because I was adopted. But she wrote letters that are in my possession now, that at the time of my birth. And in one of the letters, she's expressing clearly that she didn't want to give me up. But then in the next letter, she's saying that the Catholic priest is telling her she must sign at once and that she has to do what's best for the baby. So you see, this is the coercion that was used on women at the time. They didn't give their babies away. They were coerced into parting with their children. And they regretted it, most of them regretted it all their lives.
So the pressures on her were intense then to give you up. And there was this struggle then, was the mental struggle.
Yes. But another reason I know she didn't give me up lightly is that somehow
Bless you.
Yeah. Somehow she found out where I lived, where I'd been adopted, which really wasn't allowed in those days. I don't think it's allowed now, really, but when you had a baby adopted, you signed it away and that was it. You have no rights. But somehow she found out where I lived, in Widnes, in West Bank, and she came knocking on the door. My Florrie, my adopted mother, told me she came knocking on the door and she wanted to see me, and she let her in because Florrie was a very, very kind woman. And Carol was visiting me then from somewhere in Manchester. Florrie said she was travelling to Widnes, which was quite a way in those days, because the public transport wasn't that good, was it? And she was visiting me up until I was nearly 3. But we were becoming too attached, Florrie said to me. We were becoming too attached. And her mother said to her, my grandmother, said that, that baby won't know who its mother is. It's going to be confused and you need to stop these visits. And that's what Florrie did. She stopped the visits.
Don't you vaguely remember as Auntie Kath? You've got that very vague memory.
Well, I'm going, yeah. When she had to part with me, she gave me the blue plastic cow. Got it here.
Wow.
I've still got it here. She gave it me after all those years.
70-odd years old, isn't it?
Wow.
And so that was my parting gift. So in honour of her, I had to, that's why I named it the blue plastic cow. That's what everybody asks. Why blue plastic cow? But so it must have been very, very difficult for her, really, because she'd become attached to me and she had to part with me again. So she parted with me when I was 5 days old, and then it was again. And I found out many years later from my mother that she had written letters to my mother. She moved away from the area then. She moved away and she was writing to my mother, or probably leaving a trail for me, I should imagine. And from Tunbridge Wells, my mother said, or Sevenoaks. And I remember my mother telling me about these letters, and I asked her, well, have you got them? Where are they? And she burned them.
So Florrie burnt them.
She burned them. Florrie burnt the letters because she didn't want me to go looking for her. She said, I burnt them after one of your teenage tantrums.
Oh, dear.
Because she was afraid. She loved me, and
Was she doing it out of protection?
I think she was. In her own mind, she was doing it out. She did it all out of protection, but she didn't realise that by lying to me and being dishonest to me, that this is what screws you up mentally, you know, not having access to the truth.
Yeah, the truth is all important, isn't it, really? I mean, Florrie just did it for the best intentions. It was a shame, really. She didn't realise the importance of knowing where you come from. That's all Barbara wanted to know, really, wasn't it?
Let's go back to some of the early years, Mum. What are these pictures here?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was adopted. Florrie and Jim were a working class family, salt of the earth, hard-working, working class family, and they really loved me. And they lived in Widnes, which was an industrial town on the banks of the River Mersey, about 12 miles from Liverpool. So living on the banks of the River Mersey, I had a sort of a seaside upbringing. We used to play on the sand. And this is me with my two friends on what we call the alley rocks. They were rocks. And then my dad had a boat on Spike Island. This is my father here.
Wow, me
He had a
Jan.
boat on Spike Island. He used to go catching shrimps and shooting
Things.
things, ducks, which my mum didn't like. She didn't like
Didn't like cleaning them after, did
cleaning
she?
them
No,
up.
don't blame her.
No. And I'll go down here because this is West Bank as well. We had a transporter bridge. This is it here. It was pulled down to make way for the Jubilee Bridge
Is that the Runcorn Bridge?
in the 60s.
So called, yeah.
And now we've got another bridge. What's the new bridge called now?
The toll
Mersey
road.
Gateway.
The Mersey Gateway.
road.
The
Toll
Mersey
road.
Gateway. So this is me. I look about 8 months old here, sat in the park
Not
with
long
the
after
You
you
look
got
really
to-
happy.
Don't you?
Yeah,
Smart,
well,
huh?
that's not long after I was adopted. I was adopted at... No, they got me at 6 months and the adoption papers were signed 12 months later.
So why did they go into the adoption programme? Could they not have children?
They got children
yeah.
already.
Oh, they had.
Oh, yeah, my mum, she had 3 other children. My 2 brothers, Jimmy and Joseph, and my sister, Lily, and this is Lily. This is Lily, and that's me and Lily, yeah.
Lily's like the kindest person ever, isn't she?
Without
This
doubt.
is me.
helps
This is
everybody.
me in Parsonage Road in West Bank. This house was pulled down to make way for the new bridge, and Lily was a coronation queen, and this is me as a bridesmaid, coronation. Street parties, and everybody celebrated. West Bank was the sort of place where everybody knew everybody, and everybody went into everyone else's houses. But then we moved from West Bank to a council estate, and that's where this is taken.
Is that Pine Avenue?
Pine Avenue.
Avenue,
Yeah. So I'm about 12 there, I think. So that is the age I was when I
Found out.
because this is us at a caravan in Rhyl in Wales on holiday. Love Lily's knitted costume.
Looks like you've got posh shoes
So this
on
is my mum and my dad, Florrie and Jim. Yeah.
So Jim, we used to call him me Jan,
Mm-hmm.
and until he was really old, he cycled to work, didn't he?
Really?
Yes.
He did.
Yeah, and in a scrap yard. He
fell off
protected the
at
scrap
one
yard.
time. He broke his arm and he didn't do it anymore.
When I would
He
go
came
over
for
there
him,
as a
didn't
kid, he'd always have his pipe and his budgie.
Yes.
Was it Joey the budgie?
Joey the Budgie.
And he'd leave like 10, 20, 50p, depending on how old I was, under one of the ornaments on the mantelpiece
Yes.
as my pocket money every week.
But he did one for all the grandchildren,
Yeah.
so you
Yeah.
all knew where your
Yeah,
10 pence was, didn't you?
yeah.
Yeah, so so that's the age I was when I found out, because the biggest mistake Florrie made really is that she never told me that I was adopted.
Yeah.
she thought it was the right thing to do, that she was protecting me.
Did that make you lash out?
No, so when I was 12, I found out by accident that I was adopted by a therapist. I was having therapy, and
What happened in that session?
well, it was all going very well. I'd done all these intelligence tests and puzzles, and then we were just chatting about the family, and he said to me, "You do know you're adopted, don't you?"
What, plain as day?
So saying
Wow.
this to a 12-year-old girl, well, it wasn't good, was it?
What was your reaction?
And I didn't. Well, there's the chapter in the book it's a good description, isn't it, of it's like the world stood still. You know, when you're in an accident and everything stops. Well, that's what it was like for me. Everything just stopped. And all these memories of things that had happened, hints
Did it all click into place?
that are all in the book, all clicked into place. And it all made sense then. All these strange things that had happened. And plus, I always felt different. My adopted parents and my family never did anything to make me feel different, but it was just something in me, and I think this is something in all adopted people.
When I saw you with your siblings, before I knew, I always thought you looked different.
Yeah.
They looked similar, and
What
you
age
looked
did you
different.
find out your mum was adopted?
I can't remember.
It was when Mum started the
was
search.
that uni, was I?
When you were in your 40s, I think, wasn't it? When your mum started the search, then you and Karen were both told.
Yeah. If we go back to me finding out, I became quite rebellious.
Yeah.
I hated my mum for not being my mum. You know, I mean, I was 12, or 13. I knew sort of vaguely the facts of life. You were never told the facts of life in those days. But I knew about these children that were born out of wedlock and how everybody whispered about them, and, oh, you know, such a body's having a baby, and, you know, she has to go away and have the baby.
Well, it was a sin, wasn't it? In the Catholic community, it was a sin. Mortal sin, more or less.
Yes, to have sex outside of marriage. I mean,
me.
people can't imagine it today, but that's how it was. And so I knew about these children, and then all of a sudden, oh, I'm one of these children. I'm a bastard. You know, I felt inferior. So I turned against my mum. When I came out of hospital, I wouldn't speak to her. You know, we had a difficult relationship, but she made it worse by she sat me down and said she was going to explain it to me. But what she did do was she blackened my biological mother's character, saying that she was one of these girls who got into trouble, and that she didn't want me, that I was abandoned, and that if she hadn't have come to the orphanage and took me, I'd still be there.
But which was rooted in love, because she didn't want to lose you to someone else.
Oh, that, yeah.
Yes, it was
yeah.
the whole. I must say this: I loved Florrie, and she loved me.
She was a brilliant mother-in-law, terrific, very, very kind to everyone. Gave a tramp outside the Sunday dinner when she saw him sat on the bench.
I don't know why I'm
didn't she?
getting so upset.
She was very kind. It was just, she didn't read it properly, and that's just unfortunate. And
Yeah,
but
I was
Derick
adopted by a lovely family, and Lily was just like, I always say this, if I'd had to choose a sister, I would have chosen Lily.
To this day, isn't she?
That's
She's
why.
solid, isn't she, Lily?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean,
I spent many a young year in the house playing with Lily's kids, didn't I?
yeah.
Yeah.
So I became rebellious, and then a few years later, I couldn't forgive her for not telling me really, and she still didn't tell me the truth. She still didn't tell me about Catherine writing the letters or anything. I just thought I'd been abandoned. So what I did, excuse me, I just buried it deep. I didn't want to think about it or talk about it. I couldn't have even imagined going off it looking for this woman who'd abandoned me. You know, it was the last thing I'd want to do. But at the same time, I hated Florrie. Somebody asked me that, about why all your vengeance seemed to have been centred on your mum rather than the rest of the family. And I find that difficult to answer, really.
Is it because you were close to her? She was the closest
Probably.
person
And
to
she was
you,
the main
you know?
focus,
Probably.
wasn't she,
Yeah.
really? Where the information was coming from as well at the same
Exactly.
time. So
Yeah.
it's-
So how did that angst materialise as a teenager?
Yeah, well, it coincided with the Mersey scene, the Beatles, and all the whole.
That was like your rave scene.
Yeah, like your rave
the Cavern
scene,
Club
yeah.
and all
Yeah.
the many clubs in Liverpool,
Yeah.
weren't
Yeah, so I started to work. I got a job in Liverpool as a secretary, and I used to go to lunchtime sessions at the Cavern. Oh, it was so exciting. Liverpool was such a
So
place.
you're bopping away on your lunch.
It was,
Oh,
yeah.
yes.
Can you believe going to lunchtime sessions? It was just
Good exercise.
buzzing. Liverpool
Get away
was
from that
just-
desk and
yeah.
get that body moving.
It was, and it was just buzzing. Liverpool. I saw them at the Cavern numerous times.
What was the first songs you heard from the Beatles?
Love Me Do was the first record.
Was it?
wasn't Yeah.
Big
Well, they
hit.
were actually, before they became famous, they came to Widnes, the town where I lived, and they did 3 concerts on 3 consecutive weeks at the Queen's Hall.
Queen's Hall. Is that still
So
going,
I-
the Queen's Hall?
No, it's
No.
flats now.
Really? I've been there, haven't I?
So I saw them when I was 15 at the Queen's Hall.
Yeah.
But then later. So my rebellion, really, I didn't do anything so terrible,
We were
really.
staying out late.
Staying out late.
Started drinking.
Getting drunk.
Smoking and drinking.
Smoking and drinking.
Yeah.
You're grassing her up
Staying
now.
Well, she said you didn't do anything. Gotta get it in.
It's all the usual. It's all the usual teenage things, but maybe I did
Yeah.
it a bit more. And
Yeah.
and I sort of, if my mother tried to say anything to me about it,
Made it worse.
It was, "You're not my real mother. You're not my real mother. You can't tell me what to do." I was horror. I really was horror.
Temporarily.
Temporarily. Yeah. So.
You're processing it all. That was why you were. Your brain
Such a
Yeah.
shock.
But I
processing
still
shock.
never, I very rarely spoke to people about it. Rita, my childhood friend, she knew. I spoke to her about it. But apparently a very sad thing Rita told me a lot later on was that my mum went to her house and she was crying over my behaviour. And she asked Rita would she talk to me about it and try and get through to me.
Wow.
You know, so so I do sort of know that Florrie suffered as well, because in the book I've written the first half of the book in third person. It's like a story, because there's parts of it that I couldn't possibly have known. When I was 6 months old, I couldn't know Florrie's thoughts, so I've written it as a story, but it's based on all the true facts. And I did it as well because I found it easier for me emotionally. I could distance myself. I was talking about the baby or the child or about Barbara, so it wasn't strictly about me. And it helped me. Because sometimes I'd be sat at the computer crying, you know, because people say it's cathartic, don't they? But it was in a way, and it quite often is cathartic, but I think it can bring it all back. It can bring it all back to you, you know, so it wasn't easy to write it. But I wanted to write it because I wanted people to understand what it is like to be adopted. Or to get some of you... I don't think anyone can really understand unless they've been adopted themselves. But I tried to get across some of the emotional impact in the book. And I think I've succeeded quite well, because a lot of other adopted people have bought the book and read it, and they relate out to everything in it, you know. So I think I did do quite a good job there, yeah.
So considering you found out this information from a therapist, did you continue therapy throughout finding out with your mother 12 years old?
No, I didn't have therapy. I should have done. This is the awful thing. You know, I should have had therapy, but I mean, my mum was very much against me seeing the psychiatrist. The reason I saw him, it wasn't for behaviour. It was I'd had a brain a brain tumour, which fortunately was benign and it wasn't as bad as they thought. No. But I saw the psychiatrist to do intelligence tests and to test my cognitive abilities. So after the operation, right.
You said you had a brain tumour as if it was just an afterthought then.
Yeah.
That's a major thing on many people's lives for that to happen.
It is.
How did you know? What were the symptoms of that? How did you know you had to go in?
I didn't think this would be part of the story, really. But yeah, I was not. No, I was. How old was I?
10, 11.
I was.
Ish.
It was. Yeah.
Thereabouts,
It was.
anyway.
It was just as I found out. Wasn't I? So I was about 12.
Blinding headaches.
Yeah, I had blinding headaches, banging my head against the wall,
Screaming with pain.
pain. But obviously, I mean, going back then, I'm 74 now. Going back then, there were no scans, so it was pretty much.
No anesthetic.
They just go in.
They just diagnose you on the symptoms that what you were telling them. So I was diagnosed with this brain
and they get the saw
tumour.
out.
It's a look and see. Let's have a look and see, isn't it? A look and see. The drill.
The drill.
Yeah. So so the doctors told Florrie and Jim that if I had the operation, I could more likely be
impaired in some way. Yeah.
Be cognitively impaired in some way, or I would die.
One or the other.
And Florrie asked what the alternative was, and he said, well, just more and more pain and eventual death. Anyway, so...
What was the operation back then?
I had 2 scars down the back of my head, so I don't know.
You don't know exactly what they did?
I don't know exactly what they did.
Medical records disappeared,
strangely, the medical records seemed to have disappeared at that time.
So they remove a section of the skull then, did they, and go in and take it out?
Well, they would have done, wouldn't they? I guess, because your hair was all shaved at the back, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah, and I've got 2 scars down the back of my head. Yeah, so
yeah,
great.
Yeah, but fortunately, I was. It was a matter of opinion.
What's your compos mentis?
I'm compos mentis. Yeah. So that was how the therapist. That was the therapist. Yeah, whether he got told off for doing
Sure,
this.
he got struck off.
Florrie never forgave him because she thought that if he hadn't have told me, that would have been it, and she could have kept.
It was all his fault.
You would have found out eventually.
Yes, but it might have been even worse. I don't know, or maybe when I was more mature. It's just at 12, 13, it's like the worst age, isn't it? You're just coming up to puberty, and
we best move on to what triggered you to search then.
Well, I was married. I had you and Karen, and I was 40. And one day I was sorting out rubbish. We lived at Hillview then. We moved house, and I came across the blue plastic cow, which miraculously had survived all these years. I didn't really know what it was, so it's amazing that I still had it, because none of my other toys had survived. But there it was, and it was vaguely... I just felt its mystery, its power in a way. It was.
Did the cow speak to you?
It moved.
Well, it did in a way. It did actually speak to her in a way.
Yeah.
In its own way.
Well, it did. Really, it was like one of those moments in your life when you can't explain it, but things sort of come together and you feel as though you've got to act, you've got to do something.
Synchronicity.
Yeah. So I thought, no matter what I find, even if she doesn't want to know me, I'm going to find out who I am. Because one of the things my mum, Florrie, used to say to me was, I don't know where I got you from.
When you're behaving badly.
When I was behaving badly. And I mean, I know a lot of parents say that to their kids. Oh, I don't know where I got you from. But for me, it seemed to have a special significance somehow.
Yeah.
And sometimes she did say, I don't know what that one who had you was like, you know, which, you know, wasn't good. But no matter what, I thought, well, no matter what that one who had me was like, I'm going to find out for myself, no matter what. And the law was actually changed in 1975 in this country. So adoptees did actually have access to the birth records. But at that time, I wasn't in a place where I could have coped with it. Right. So I was 40 in
1987?
1987. But in the 1980s, I was determined. And the first thing you do is you contact the social services to get access to your birth records. And they have to counsel you to make sure that your motives are, that your motives, you could be out for revenge or whatever. So I wasn't immediately given my birth records, which I felt very resentful about, because the social worker to me represented the authorities that had kept me in the dark about this all my life. So the social worker she was a very nice lady, but and she was very helpful. So we got the birth records, didn't we?
Yeah,
And,
you went on to the office first to see the lady, didn't she?
She went through.
Came
Yeah, I
back
went
to
to
you
the
with the
office
records.
and she went through it all. She told me about Carol being in the Land Army. I only found all that out when I was 40. I didn't know. I was completely in the dark as a child. Well, I was kept completely in the dark. Yeah. So.
Well, there were telegrams and letters off your mum. The telegrams were quite incredible to see a telegram from 1947, 48.
The week after I'd seen the social worker,
She came round with
a couple
these.
of weeks after I was counselled by the social worker, she came to the house. She rang up and she said, I've got some letters from your mother. Now, these are different from the letters that Florrie burned. These are different
These are
letters.
in between the adoption thing, aren't they?
Those letters were that Florrie burned were written when she told Catherine not to come to the house anymore.
These are between Carol and the Adoption Society and the Catholic Church, and signing the form and so on. I don't want to sign the form. I'm going to sign the form.
These letters that she gave
and telegrams.
Me, but they're absolutely heartbreaking.
Incredible.
They were empty letters, and it's all about how she was crying by having to give me away, how difficult it was for her to give me away, and the tears that she'd shed, and how she'd changed her mind in one of them, and that she would keep me and try to manage on her own.
Can I just say this bit as well? There's one of them that she says, now this is significant. She said, I broke my arm so I can't sign the form. Clearly she hadn't broke her arm. She was just saying that in order to not have to do it. So she was really struggling with it, fighting hard not to do it. She wouldn't have done it if she had any choice, and she wasn't given one.
And that was the first time you found out that...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
40 years old.
So I suddenly found out that Carol didn't want to give me up. That she must have really loved me. That she struggled to give me up, and that she found out where I lived. That she was visiting me, and that she had to give me up again when I was 3. So I just felt a desperate need to find her then. I thought because I knew that she'd want me. I knew that she'd want to see me, that she'd want to know how I was. So it was a...
it kick-started your search, didn't it, really?
That kick-started the search. So we went through the records, didn't we, together. Derick Derick has been wonderful.
Yeah, we went through electoral roles in various towns.
All of this, this search right from the beginning.
I found it
So where did-
quite an adventure, really, to be honest
Did
with
you?
Yeah, oh, I did, yeah. I thought it
Yeah.
was really exciting. I knew Barbara was suffering over this all the years and so on, but I found it all the whole thing an exciting adventure.
Well, one day, we won't go through it all, but one day I was sat in work at my typewriter and the phone rings and it was...
I just like the typewriter.
Typewriter.
No Mac.
No, yeah, typewriter, yeah, back in the dark age. And the phone rings and it's Derick telling me that he'd found my father.
I said, are you
Thomas.
sitting down?
Oh, yes.
So it was
Are you
who
sitting down?
found him?
Yeah.
Wow.
What it was, we had these records from the social work, and it had various addresses. It had Carol's last address in Colne, which we went up to at one stage. But anyway, one day I was at work, I decided, well, I'm going to go and look at them records again. It had his last known address in this town, which I won't mention. I thought, well, I bloody well go there. So I went there, just drove there in the car, a little cul-de-sac, knocked on the door, nobody in. I'm not giving up. Went next door. I'm dressed in a business suit, so this old lady comes there. I said, do you know Tom? And she said, Thomas, yeah, whatever his surname was. And she said, yes, he's moved from there, but he's only round the corner. Ah, have you got his address? Yes, she had. Give me his address. So I shot round the corner, semi-detached house, knocked on the door, no reply, dog barking at the back. Goes round the side, this man with a flat cap coming towards me, scratching his head. And I said, are you Thomas? He said, yeah, who are you? I said, do you remember the baby, Barbara? Oh, I remember the baby, Barbara, he said, as if it was like this mystery.
I thought it was a while before he remembered.
No, he remembered it pretty quickly.
Right.
And he said, I remember it was Carol he didn't remember. It was the baby he did significantly remember.
Right.
And he said, yeah. I said, well, I'm married to Barbara. I said, we're trying to find Carol. I said, I'd not come here to bother you, to upset you, anything like that. We just want to know if you've got any information about Carol, if you can share it with us. And he said, well, he was in a state of shock.
He said it was Carrie, didn't he?
Carrie.
I knew her as Carrie.
That's it, yeah. He said, I knew her as Carrie.
I knew her as Carrie.
That's what when I said the first name, it wasn't recognisable to him because he knew her as this Carrie. So I said, have you got any information? But he was too shocked. I said, will you talk to Barbara? Well, he gave me his phone number. I said we'd ring him back and maybe conversation would take place. And that was it. And that's when I rang Barbara from a phone box round the corner. No mobile phones in them days, so pennies in. I thought, geez, I've got really big news. We're going to find her in a few weeks. So
as you can imagine, I was totally shocked. I was delighted, but totally shocked. Because there was quite a bit of information on the records, and we'd done various things, hadn't we? You know, looked in records since Catherine's house and looked up different records, but we wasn't getting anywhere.
The thing is, at that time you looked at all records, you don't really think that someone's still living there. But that day I thought to myself, well, he might be, or someone might know of him. But as I said, he'd only moved round the corner, which people didn't move very far in them days, even now, so I suppose.
Well, he didn't, because he was.
No, he didn't.
He was as he said, he was a Cheshire lad, and he never moved very far. He never wanted to. Well, and he told me that was one of the problems with the relationships, because Carol had big ideas and she wanted to travel and do this and this, you know. So
he was rooted to the land, wasn't he? Basically,
yes,
that was his whole, you know.
But they were both strong characters, I think. They both had very strong characters, and I think that was another issue as well.
When you see Natural Dad's face for the first time, what's going through your head?
Do a lot like him, probably, wasn't it? Do a lot like him.
Oh, yeah. There's a whole chapter on this, isn't
Well,
there?
go on, give us the build-up to how you actually physically were in his presence.
That was after a few months of phone calls and stuff. It wasn't straight away.
He wouldn't see me straight away. He didn't want to see me straight away. He prevaricated, didn't he?
For a while,
and he didn't want his daughters. He had 2 daughters to his wife, who he married 3 years after he left Carol. He married, and then it was a couple of years later. Then he had 2 daughters, But he said he didn't want them to know about me because he'd brought them up strictly.
He told his wife, by the way, hadn't he?
Yeah,
He told his
he
wife.
brought them up strictly, and he didn't want to tell them that he had an illegitimate child. So, I mean, how hypocritical is that? Yeah.
So he didn't want the apple cart upsetting,
Didn't want the apple
things coming out and
cart
so on.
upsetting, really.
But you got to see him in the end.
So eventually he did agree to. We had telephone calls. I called him quite often, and but he couldn't remember a lot about.
Over the years,
really.
he got bits of info.
And these phone calls went on for years because it took me 26 years to actually find out what happened to her. But so I had these phone calls every week, but he never rang me once, ever. It was always my instigation. I told him in the beginning I didn't want anything from him. All I wanted was information about Carol. So I did make that quite clear. But I did ask him as time went on if I could meet. I asked him repeatedly if I could meet my sisters, but he wouldn't. He
Have you
wouldn't
ever
allow
to
it,
this
and I
day
had to.
Met your sisters?
Yes, I have. Yeah, I have. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I have met my two sisters.
And
Yeah.
what's the relationship like?
Yes, we have a good relationship. Yes, the sister who lives in Cheshire, we before COVID, we met up every month for lunch at the garden centres. Yeah, and Lily came too.
So you met your dad for the first time. How did that come about?
And he met Karen as well on one time. He agreed after many phone calls. He actually agreed to see me, and it was terrifying. I was absolutely terrified because I didn't know how I'd react. I didn't want to cry. I don't know. Yes, I met him out in the Cheshire countryside, and
Was it a church car park or something like that?
we met in a church car park. Yes. And
Then you got in his car and drove to where he had.
It was weird,
cattle.
really. I remember seeing him getting out of the car, and I was writing a letter to you in America, actually.
Oh yeah.
I was
Which we'll get on to later.
No.
What year was this then?
This was.
You were
yeah.
there.
I arrived too early for the meeting, and I sat in the church car park. And to pass the time, I had an A4 pad. I started writing to Shaun, telling him, he was in America then, living in America, and I was writing to him, telling him what I was doing, that I was in this. And then all of a sudden I saw this car pull up, and I wrote, "Oh, he's here, it looks as though he's here." And yeah, it was terrifying. And he came across, and we sort of hugged, and I was just so terrified. I was just so terrified of crying. I just didn't want to make a scene, so I really calmed myself down. But I looked like him and his side of the family more than my mother's side of the family. Yeah, we've got the same eyes, same colour eyes, yeah. So,
He was slim, wasn't he? Slim and sturdy.
Slim and sturdy.
Wasn't that tall, was he, I don't think?
No.
What were the first things you said to each other?
Hello. You made it then. You found us all
just
right.
small talk about the
Usual
about
stuff,
the
isn't it?
journey. Yes, yeah. But he told me more about the relationship, as after this first meeting we had more phone calls, and gradually over the years he gradually revealed more and more about the relationship, although he couldn't remember. It was him who he told me what a lively person she was, and how everybody loved her, and she got on very well with people. She was very outgoing. She loved people, and she was writing letters everywhere. And so he told me all about her character. And he often said, "Oh, we could have made a go of it. We could have made a go of it." He said it was an awful thing that he did, but he was young and selfish, and
You mean calling the wedding off was an awful thing?
Yeah.
wasn't it?
Calling calling the wedding off was an awful thing to do to her, and that it.
Because it was him that told you about the wedding. Barbara didn't know about that at the time. He explained that gradually over months and months and months, and that was quite staggering to find out a wedding was planned. And Carol was living at the farmhouse, getting ready for this wedding, and 2 or 3 days before, boom.
Yeah, she was living at the house. Yeah, I didn't know any of this because my mum didn't know any of this. My mum, if she did, she didn't tell me.
So that
it was
valuable.
him. After I've only found all this out after I was 40, all about. So it was worth going.
The conversations were worth it.
And
yeah.
finding that they had a proper relationship was, because you think, well, I remember the social worker saying to me, if you decide to look, you have to be prepared for anything. She said you could be the product of rape, incest, anything. She said a lot of adoptees think, they're going to, the birth parents are going to be rich and make their life wonderful, but and make up for everything. But that isn't always the case, she said, and quite often, whether that's still the case today, but she said quite often you can get the door shut in your face because if your mother has married again and not told her husband that she had a child before she was married, it could cause an awful lot of problems in the marriage. So even though from the letters I've gotten, from the fact that she was visiting me, I knew she would want to see me and I had to find her. But it was that also was in my mind that has she told a new family? If she has a new family, has she told them? And that's what holds a lot of adoptees back. I think the fear of having the door shut in the face.
Again.
There's one example in the book that we went to St Catherine's House where all the birth records are kept. And we went with this group, this NORCAP group. They help people look for their, for their birth parents. And there was this one man who was there, and he'd traced his whole family over the years. He knew them all. He knew where they all lived. He'd sat outside their houses, and this had been going on for about 10 years. He'd never had the courage to knock on the door.
He didn't want that second rejection. It was better the way it was left.
Wow.
That's sad, isn't it?
I felt so sad for him, So these are the emotions that I think people who aren't adopted, it's hard for them to understand, really. And
there's one small point we should make about this as well: the fact that she was so hard to find because there was never a record of her date of birth. We never knew her birth date. We knew vaguely the years in between or whatever, but there was no date of birth.
No, on the social worker's report, she hadn't given a proper date of birth, a full date of birth.
So what we've got here then is a 2-hour story, because you've only just found your dad right now. So do you want to just finish with your activism, and then you can come back and do part 2, where you continue the search for your mum? Because there's still another hour. We're almost at the hour.
Because the emotional content of that is quite draining for your mum, so that's probably the right thing to do.
Yeah, so you're now doing activism, aren't you? Online.
Forced adoption.
With people who are in the forced adoption community.
Oh, yes.
And you've set up a Facebook page for adoptees and so on.
Yes.
Because the book's caused this ripple effect, hasn't it?
Oh, yes. Well, since writing the book, I have there's various adoptees have read it and they've been in touch with me. And I've set up a Facebook page for adoptees to tell their stories.
What's it called? We'll put it below the video.
Adoption Chat?
Adoption Chat.
Chat, isn't it? Yeah.
And stories. Adoption
Chat and stories, yeah.
I can give you the link. It's a private group, so that you have to apply to join.
What's the conditions?
You'd have
Non-drinking, non-smoking, no drugs.
Well, you have to be interested.
So what do they email you to apply? Is that what they have to do?
Well,
No,
find
if
a
they
page.
Find
the page and
Find me
apply
on
for an
Facebook.
invite.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we'll put the link below.
A lot
Yeah.
of closed groups do that anyway.
But also, when you first published Blue Plastic Cow, Karen and your dad, Karen and
My
Sean's
sister's-
sister Karen and Derick put me on Twitter.
Oh,
I
yeah.
had no idea.
You went viral
I went-
overnight.
I went viral
1,000
overnight. I had 1,000
I know, it's
followers.
impressive.
Yeah, overnight. I hadn't a clue. I'm still not very good on Twitter. All these Twitter people, please forgive me because I never know who I'm replying to. So you'll have to excuse that. But what I found on Twitter is there's a whole community of adoptees, most of them younger than me. I'm probably the oldest one on there. But that to have a whole different approach to adoption. I was ashamed of being adopted. I kept it hid. I didn't tell anybody. I even believed that adoption was probably the right solution to children born out of, unplanned pregnancies. But attitudes have changed so much, and they call it coming out of the fog on Twitter. I think
out of the
at
fog?
74, I'm only just coming out of the fog. And I realise, and realising that most of my depression and mental health problems that I've had relates back to being separated from my mother at 5 days old, and then being separated from her again, and then not knowing my roots, always feeling I was different and that there was something missing from my life, although I didn't know what it was, and just being lied to, really, not knowing that it's a basic human right to know what your biology is, who your parents are. I know that there's lots of biological parents. I mean, I get this sometimes, my parents were terrible to me. They did this and this to me from different people. But you had lovely parents. I said, yes, I did have lovely parents. I said, but no matter what your parents did to you, you knew who they were. You knew your biology. You knew who you were. And I accept that argument, but it's something. It's this. I don't know. It is hard to explain, and I have tried to do it in the book. This feeling of alienation, and there's one girl on Twitter. I hope she won't mind me using her handle. She calls her handle on Twitter is a blueberry in a bowl of raspberries.
Oh.
And I think that sums it up. It's lovely. I really think it sums it up,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although I'll say again, I love my brothers and sisters. I love my parents. And I still love all my adopted family to bits. And I joined this movement, not necessarily join, but support MAA. It's the Movement for an Adoption Apology in the UK. And so it's mothers who were coerced historically into giving up their children, their babies. And it's spearheaded by Anne Keane, who was an ex-Labour MP, and she's now advisor to the Labour government in the National Health. And she had a son when she was 17 that she had to give up. And Duncan Kennedy has made a documentary for the BBC. You could put that link in.
Whatever links you send us, we'll put down there.
Because the mothers in this documentary, they're expressing how they felt when they had to part with their babies, and none of them wanted to part with their babies. It's just they didn't have support from their families, and they were told there was no support, when in actual fact I think the law changed in, I think it was 1948, and it gave mothers the same rights as widows So they did have rights to benefits and housing, but they were never told. They were never told. The social workers, the church, doctors, they all joined together to coerce these poor girls into giving up the babies.
Like a conspiracy, really, wasn't it?
Yeah.
When you think about it.
And they were treated dreadfully. And it says in the documentary that one of the midwives refused to give her painkiller when she was giving birth because she said that if you suffer, you'll remember and you won't do this again.
Yeah.
The attitudes.
So people say, well, why do they want an apology now after all this time? Well, they want an apology because they were treated by society, an unforgiving, moralistic society. They were made to feel like dirt, evil women. Whereas the men who got them pregnant, just went off and nothing else was thought of it. I'm not saying that there are men I've got stories of couples who, because they wasn't married, had to give their baby up. Wow. And then they later got married, but because they had the child adopted, they had no rights to the child. I mean, that's terrible, isn't it, really? So these ladies do need an apology, and they have got an inquiry now. Harriet Harman is chairing the inquiry, and they've asked women who during that period who were coerced to give evidence to this inquiry, and adoptees as well. I mean, I written evidence. They sent a survey around, so unfortunately that closed on the 28th of October. So there's no more evidence now, but I'm sure they've got lots and lots of evidence, yeah. So they're hoping for an apology, but not just an apology, really. These women should have counselling. They're still suffering now. Anne, when she got my book, she couldn't read it because she said she'd be so upset. And I felt like when I watched that documentary, the voices of the mothers, it was like my mother speaking to me, and I felt her pain through those mothers. It's it was a terrible, terrible situation. But from what I gather on Twitter, this is still going on in different countries around the world, and still to a certain extent in the UK as well. And adoptees are being denied access to the birth records. In Texas, apparently, it's illegal.
Many US states
to try to get access to your birth records. You become a criminal. So it's this attitude still is terrible. So adoptees need a voice. They need a voice. They need someone to speak up for them and to recognise the mental scars. Even if you've been adopted into a loving family, and a lot of most people adopt children. They love them and they care for them and they look after them. There are people who adopt children and they don't care for them and they don't look after them, as there are biological parents who don't look after the children, but yes, it's adoptees need a voice, and it does need to be recognised, the mental scars.
And your book has become a voice?
My voice. Well, I hope my book is a voice.
The link is down there in the description box below the video. You can see where I got my youthful looks from. There's one down in the 1960s.
Oh, this is me in the 60s.
Looking very chic there, Mum, aren't you?
You do look fabulous.
Yeah.
Actually, this is my family, the adopted family. They are my two brothers, Jimmy and Joseph.
Right.
Jimmy, Joseph.
There's
Lily.
and there's Florrie and Jim.
Oh, wow.
My dad was a lovely man, Jim, wasn't he?
That dress is fabulous that you're wearing, yeah. It's lovely.
My dad's got a bit of a wild glint in his eyes up there, hasn't he? About to do an Irish.
To be sure, no, so we are. Catch yourself on, boy.
So, this section is Son in Prison. May 16th, 2002. There was a knock on my door. Bow, 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 bow. Anyway, I got SWAT team raided on that day. You get a phone call, don't you, at some point after that?
Yes. I was watching Coronation Street with Karen, Shaun's sister, and there was a telephone call. So I picked up the phone, and it was Derick's sister, Anne, who lives in Arizona. And she said to me, are you all right? She said, I've got something to tell you. I thought, oh, yeah. And she said, Shaun's been arrested on serious drugs charges. Well, it just didn't register. Somehow it just didn't register. She said that she gave me an address. She told me the prison that you were in and how you could be contacted. And I just continued the conversation, asking her, "Oh, and how are your kids? And how's?" It was weird. I was in such a shock that it hadn't registered properly with me.
What threw you off more? Hearing from the doctor that you've been adopted, or that call?
I think there was a bit of both, really. I don't think I could decide which was the most traumatic.
Equally traumatic.
Really. Yeah.
Right.
So I turned to Karen and I told Karen, and she was the same. It was like it didn't register with her, and we were sort of dancing round the house and.
What, to the fact that he'd been arrested?
We were just behaving in a strange way.
Bizarre. It was surreal, wasn't it?
A bizarre way.
Surreal.
And then all of a sudden, we just broke down and cried and just got hold of each other and hugged each other and just sat on the couch crying, basically. And then...
I came home from work, was told the news, said what's happened, what's going on. I don't think I rang Anne straight back. I had this telephone number for Towers, I think it was.
Towers Jail, Maricopa County.
So I rang them. Very difficult to get through. I think I did speak to you at that time. Or was it just your charges I got over the phone?
You got the charges first,
the charges, yeah, that was it. I remember now. I got the charges. I heard what they were. My bloody eyes, they were bulging out. They came round the corner and said, "We're fucked." Said Shaun is facing a long time in.
Did you quite believe it?
No, I didn't. I didn't at all. I thought there was a mistake. It's definitely not Shaun. He's not done anything like that. You know, he's a stockbroker. He's earning money over there. He's not done anything wrong. You just don't want to believe it. He's probably the biggest part of it. You don't want to believe it. So yeah, I came round and said we're goose, we finished, and so on and so forth. I think that same night we did have a phone call with yourself, didn't we? Because that's when you mentioned about we need as much money as possible because we need the best lawyer. Because I'm facing something. I don't know whether you mentioned 200 years at that point.
The second year, we were told we were facing 200 years.
Yeah.
The first year, we had 10 charges
Right.
and serious drug offender status, which was 25 plus the 10 charges.
Which the whole thing was terrifying.
Still a life sentence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The idea that your son's in somewhere which basically you've got no control over the whole thing, a family member, your son, is in there and there's nothing you can do about it except do what you can to try and raise the money and so on, which we did.
The thing is, when you're a parent, you want to put things right for your children, don't you? You want them to be happy, and you always want to make it right, and we couldn't, could we?
There was no plaster big enough at that point to make it right, so we just had
But
to...
you came and visited me quite quickly, didn't you?
Your mum straight away, more or less, didn't you, by yourself?
Well, we wanted to save money to pay for this lawyer, and so I went on my own the first time.
And what was it like trying to get into that Sheriff Joe Arpaio's jail?
The whole thing was traumatic. Just you know, we'd visited you so many times in Arizona and be sat on the plane looking forward to going to your house and to seeing you and spending time with you. And my stomach just sank slowly, more and more as we got closer and closer. It was the thoughts of visiting your child in prison. Especially such a promising child. It's not what you think, you know, when you've got your children through university and grown up. It's not what you think is going to happen, really. And visiting him in the prison, your partner at the time, what was her name?
Claudia,
yeah.
Claudia met me and she looked after me, basically. And at Anne, I stayed at
Anne, yeah.
They really looked after me and took me to the prison. So, you know, that was a real help. But
what was the procedure to get into the jail? What was the procedure to get in?
Oh, what was it you had to go
Well,
through?
to start off
kinds?
with, all visitors, families of people in prison were treated like muck. Every single one, whether you were from Great Britain, where people always say you know royal family and so on, you were treated like muck. And one of the worst things was when you went there, you had to provide a state driving licence. Oh, you don't have them. We don't come from the passport. Oh, that's no good, no good. They try and send you off until you protest and so on and make sure the ID is good enough. They just treat you. It's a little bit of power, not paid very much, I don't suppose, but it's the power they have over these poor families coming in.
I think they were particularly worse in Joe Arpaio's place.
That's what I'm talking about, in Towers and Madison Street.
Yeah, in Towers. They were bad.
Awful.
There.
What, you waiting outside for hours to get in?
Yes, you stood waiting outside for ages. And
was
it's
it-
so sad because the majority of the of them in there were Mexican. And, you know, all the partners and wives with little children, you know, you see them pushing prams up the dirt track to go to see their partner in prison. It's tragic, really. And you're not treated very well. Whether it's a similar thing, if we treat you badly, you won't come back and do this again. I think.
Well, the family shouldn't be pilloried like that.
But
though.
this is it. When you have you feel like a criminal yourself. You're imprisoned yourself. You serve that sentence with them, with your child. You serve it with them, and it was awful.
The thing is, at that point, you were innocent till proven guilty.
Yeah,
and they still treat the families like that.
Yeah, they treat everybody worse pre-sentence because they want to put as much pressure on you as possible to sign a plea bargain and just go and do your sentence. The jail is a conveyor belt to the private prisons. So the jail's this overcrowded place where they're just trying to get rid of you as fast as possible. They want to break you down to sign a plea bargain. So you'll just get shipped off to the prison system.
There's not many trials take place, is there, over there?
2% go to trial, 98% sign plea bargains.
Wow.
People come in who are guilty, innocent of things, and they say to them, just sign a plea bargain, go to the prison for a few months and we'll let you go. Or you can just stay in the jail and fight your case. And people who are innocent will rather just admit guilt to something just to get out of that jail. Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
Horrible place.
All right, so you're waiting outside for hours talking to the various families then coming in, poor people mostly.
Yeah.
And then when you get to the entrance, what
There's
happens?
dogs, isn't there? The sniffer dogs.
No,
so you have to be...
the prison complex. That was
At the jail, do you remember the jail? Towers Jail.
Yes.
Getting in there.
Yeah.
Do they pat you down and stuff?
Oh, yes, we packed into these, all packed together, yeah. Just like animals, really, you know, it's... seeing you for the first time in there,
behind a glass screen.
Black and white stripes.
Black and white stripes, yeah, and you looked emaciated and awful.
Still grinning though.
But still grinning. He always has that big grin. I think every time we visited him,
Always grinning.
he still had that big grin. Except that morning of
Boxing Day.
bald-headed Fred.
Oh, God.
Who's bullheaded?
That's a leap
I
forward.
don't know whether you want to leap forward to that yet.
No, let's leave that out. We're just going into the beginning of this. We're going to have a multi-part.
Oh God, series.
Yeah.
And they'd send you back to the car if you
Again, that's in prison.
Oh, was that in prison? It wasn't in Arpaio.
No.
Yeah.
I'm getting.
Yeah.
They're all running into one. I'm
Yeah.
afraid.
So when you
Yeah.
walk up to the glass, is there a telephone?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it works.
Manacles, Sean's manacled at the
Manacles.
feet and to the desk where the phone is. Just about pick up the phone on the other side.
That was a year later.
Was it?
So in Towers,
It wasn't like
there's
that.
a room, like a warehouse room, where all the visitation tables are.
Oh yes, it was the visitation table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're out there.
Yeah. So do you want me to?
We're all in like a cubicle, aren't we? All the prisoners are in a cubicle, just
That's
crammed
it.
like
I remember
this.
it. We should have gone.
We're all
through
looking,
this.
and it, like everyone's battling to get to the front to see if they can see their visitors and just fight. It's just craziness. So we're all in there like wild animals in this cubicle, like 30 people, and then the visitors just start coming in, and they like go to A9 table. They tell you to go to
Yeah.
some table, don't they?
Yeah.
So they
Yeah.
seat all the visitors first, don't they?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before they start releasing us.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
How are you released from the cupboard you're in?
So they open the door, and the guard on the door says a name, and that person has to come to the front of the door with their ID, and he looks at the ID, and he goes, like, table A9. Don't talk to any other visitors. And there's like signs on the walls like, no passing, no touching, no petting, no this, no that, all the things you can't do. Yeah.
Are you chained to the table?
Not in medium
No.
security. I was chained to the table a year later in Max.
Yeah. Because you hadn't
okay.
been sentenced there.
Then doubled my
yeah.
bail bond.
Yeah.
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 So you go to your table then, and I get out of that glass cage and come and speak to you.
Yeah.
Do you remember anything of that?
Just
Conversation.
your smile. Just your
Wasn't
smile.
telling you about the
And you were-
food and stuff, the Red Death and the
All the horrors of the food.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
how horrible the food was.
food,
and that,
the mystery meat
yeah.
slop.
But what I remember most is you kept your optimism. You kept saying, "I'll be
Yeah.
all right." You know, it'll all be all right.
I'll be out soon.
and I'll be out soon.
I'll be over before
Yeah.
Christmas.
So, yeah, I remember that more than anything, really. All the tales were in the blog, weren't they, about the food
Yeah.
and everything.
Yeah.
Did you believe you'd be out before Christmas?
I didn't know. I was just, it was devastating.
Wanted it to
I
happen.
was totally
Yeah.
devastated. I mean, I never told anybody that I was so embarrassed about it. I thought that somebody had come and paint drug dealers on the wall and that they'd smash the windows in and all of this. I didn't tell. I worked at a college. I was a teacher at a college, and one day there were a group of ESOL students. That's students learning English, and I came into the classroom and I took it into my head that they knew all about Shaun, and I started running around.
That's
the
when you
room.
had a breakdown.
I
came down to
started
pick
running
you up.
round the room saying, they all know, they all know, they all, I was convinced. I think one student must have looked at me and
The wrong
and I
way.
thought, yeah. And then I just broke down crying and
I came down the college.
my colleague said to me, I told them, I had to tell them then. And that was the first time I'd told them. And it was like, and Derick came down to pick me up, didn't you, and take me home.
Everyone
and-
was very nice. Of course they
yeah.
were, weren't they?
You see, I thought I'd lose my job. It was all out of proportion, considering I'd studied psychology. It's hard to analyse yourself, isn't
When you're in shock.
it? When you're in
Yeah.
shock. But I didn't lose my job. They were all very, very supportive, actually. Yeah.
So that visit then, any other memories of that visit? You came several times, didn't you?
Oh, we had several visits, didn't we? We've got other. Your dad came with me then on the other visits.
On the next visit, that was with your dad. Was it my dad and
No,
Karen?
I came later in the year with Karen, I think.
To visit me in the maximum security, was it? Oh, you came because we thought we were going to get sentenced. Remember?
Oh, that was the
that was further on. The
commuting.
commutation.
No, before that one as well, though. You and Karen came, didn't
God,
you?
I had forgotten about that one. Yeah,
Tell him about
was.
that
We had
one.
to go to the court for that, didn't we?
Yeah, court hearing.
Can't remember it now. I'd forgotten about that.
We
Yeah,
thought
just
I was going to
remind
get sentenced, and it all got. You flew over, and it was all cancelled.
That's right. Yeah, we thought you were going to be sentenced. Did Simpson, the lawyer, did he give us that impression? Did that come off him?
I think the prosecutor gave us that impression, and then she changed her mind.
Yeah. Right. That's right. I do remember now that. And yeah, we hung around by the court, and then someone said he's gone for lunch, the judge. And next minute, it all just
Yeah.
went. There was nothing going to happen.
Yeah.
I'd completely forgot about that, to be honest, yeah.
So you came to visit me then in the maximum security?
Karen was with us.
Where, like, have you seen Silence of the Lambs?
Yeah.
So I'm behind the plexiglass window.
That would be Madison Street.
Madison Street
Yeah.
on the phone.
That's
isn't
when he
it?
was shackled to
I'm
the
shackled
desk.
to the desk. I've got a belly
Shackled
chains on,
on
leg
the
chains on,
feet.
hand,
Oh God, that was
all
hard.
these different
Yeah.
chains on.
But all this happened before you were sentenced.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because she kept delaying it, didn't she, the prosecutor?
Or playing all kinds of...
Because she we
Dirty
thought
psychological
you see,
tricks.
We got
Psychological
this
tricks.
lawyer, and we thought it would go to trial. So we had
Oh,
a
you
certain
had no idea, did we, about this
amount
2%?
of money that it would go to trial. But so we were expecting
Yeah.
that, but she kept
Yeah.
delaying it,
Yeah.
didn't she, with
Yeah.
hearings? Wasn't she hoping for the?
They were hoping that everybody... When they arrested Sammy the Bull, all 57 co-defendants cooperated quite quickly. So in my case, no one was cooperating.
Right.
So they got no witnesses against me. They got no drugs in my house. So they're waiting and waiting and waiting, trying to... Because they arrested over 100 people. There was in various groups over time.
Yeah.
But none of them were cooperating. So that completely threw them off. They thought they had this locked down
Yeah.
because Sammy the Bull's case, everyone rolled over right away.
You thought the same would
Yeah.
happen with...
So they've got all the time in the world to wait to try and get people to cooperate.
And in the
But in the end, they didn't. Hardly any cooperated. So Alan said they had a very weak case, which gave us
That's
the plea
right.
bargaining power in the end.
Yeah, I remember that.
To get it down to 9.5
Early
years.
optimism. I remember that.
Yeah.
But
And
this all the money that we put up for the trial, it all went because of all these hearings.
All the hearings.
But didn't
Yeah.
they also do a search? They found some prescription drugs that Claudia had, and that's prevented her from visiting you.
Yeah,
hasn't it?
so I spent a year in medium security. I wasn't cooperating. Nobody else is cooperating. I'm refusing to sign a plea bargain. To break me down psychologically, they doubled my bail to 1.5 million, so I got moved to max security.
Madison Street.
Simultaneously charged Claudia with a prescription pill found in our house that didn't have a written prescription next to it, which is a class 6 felony. So
couldn't
she's
come
now
again
a
then,
co-defendant.
could she?
Co-defendants can't visit co-defendants.
Yeah.
So everything, all the conditions and the stress, and it all doubled, didn't it, when I got moved?
Yeah.
So it went
Yeah.
on for, was it how long?
26 months.
26
Wasn't
months.
until my third year, beginning of my third year, till I was sentenced.
Yeah, that was torture for us. Well, it was torture for you.
Because
it
Sheriff
was
Joe
torture
Arpaio's
for
jail
us
system is
all.
notorious.
Yeah.
That's when he started writing the letters. There were graphic detail.
Yeah,
of what was going on.
so you visit then, Mum, in Towers Jail, 2002, I think it was,
Yeah.
2003. Dad and Karen visit, 2003, 2004,
Street,
Madison
yeah.
Street Maximum Security Jail. And then I'm writing all these letters, aren't I? Because the conditions in there with the cockroaches was something else.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And you guys were like getting intrigued, weren't you, by my letters?
Well, I just read a book by Salem Pax called The Baghdad Blog. And I was reading these letters. You'd never been into English writing and stuff.
All I ever read was stock market books.
Financial
wasn't it?
books. And I couldn't believe what I was
robot.
reading. I couldn't believe what I was reading for two reasons. First, the horribleness of the cockroaches, the food and so on, but the way it was written. I thought it was superb. I thought I was reading something like Ernest Hemingway. It was so stark, brutal, everything. This has got to be... So I'd read this book, as I said before, called The Baghdad Blood by Salem Pax, which was put online when he was being bombed in Iraq at the time of that first Gulf War. And I thought, this has got to be a good idea. Put it online, put the letters online as a blog. So that's what we did. But because of the danger in there, we had to make it anonymous. So we wouldn't put Shaun Attwood's blog.
Yeah.
It was called JON, John's Jail Journal, the diary of an Orwellian unperson.
But what about Anne smuggling the blogs?
Oh, yeah.
We're getting there. We're getting there. Hold on. This
Yeah.
is the decision-making process.
The letters,
part.
the letters,
sorry.
The letters became part of the blog, but the letters got to us by my sister Anne, who visited you every single week, didn't she?
Yeah,
She was like on a mission, really. She's really kind.
definitely.
And she smuggled the letters out through legal papers or documents out of the visitation area, sneaked them through. I mean, she could have got stopped and possibly charged for something.
Yeah,
really.
so you guys knew then that Sheriff Joe Arpaio, like people getting murdered in the jail
Yeah.
system, didn't you?
Yeah.
So you were worried if we were doing this exposing the jail, I would get set up somehow by
Yeah.
the guards.
Yes,
Yeah.
You know, they could put a
Yeah.
bad cellmate
So
on
that
and
was
kill
the danger
themselves.
straight away.
So we changed the name, didn't we, to John? And why did you choose John?
Any
It's
reason?
Irish
It's
for
Irish
for.
Sean,
Sean's Irish. Well, you haven't
Original.
got the Irish spelling anyway.
Sean
have you?
Patrick. Yeah, that was it. Yeah, so
It
that
was
that was
something
cool.
like that.
That took off pretty
Yeah.
well. Didn't
It just
What
sounded good,
platform
John.
did you use for that?
Google.
Google.
Yeah.
And what, just created a
Blogger.
website?
Blogspot.
Blogspot.com.
Wow.
So once,
Still the same, isn't it?
still there.
Yeah.
So if you want to see the original blogs, Deep
So
Shit's
it was
the first
free.
one.
It was easy to do.
Deep Shit.
Yeah.
It was free and easy to do. you
God,
could put
yeah.
pictures on and stuff, but it was very easy to mess with because I wasn't that techie then. I'm not bad now, but at that time it was simple. So
We had to decide how we were going to get the blogs out of the jail, didn't we?
Yeah.
I can't put them in the mail because the guards can open the mail. So we recruited Aunt Anne, didn't we?
And she jumped at it because she wanted to help as much as she could. And going visiting every week saved Sean's sanity as well, for
Definitely.
the most part, every single week.
Yeah.
So she got those letters out. She initially typed them in emails herself, didn't she, I think?
Yeah, initially, yeah.
And
Sent
then
them
they
to you
became
guys.
longer. So then they came over.
And I
you
typed
typed them
them
out.
out, didn't I?
But to get them to Anne was a process. Because I can't just take things I've written and hand them to her. I'm behind that plexiglass screen. There's all kinds of searches. So I decided to hide them in legal paperwork and old letters. Now, to take that to Anne, I've got to beg a guard for a form, say that I want to do a property release through visitation, got to get the guard to take that form, sign it, take it, and put it through the processes. A sergeant has got to sign off on it.
Good God.
The form has then got to come back approved for a property release for that visitation day.
Wow.
And then I'm penguin shuffling up to visitation with my property here. I'm triple chained. And with all that stuff hidden in it. And then I've got to give it to the visitation guard, who then puts it on his table. And then my aunt has got to claim that property at the end of the visit when she can go and see him somewhere away from me because I can't have any contact
And
with
he
my
could
aunt.
have decided to search it,
Could have
Yeah.
decided to search it, yeah.
So there's plenty of opportunities for that.
to be
yeah.
caught.
We're
yeah.
looking at the whole time like this, just looking.
It was a bit of a miracle, really, that nothing was ever found.
What it is, they're trained to look for contraband,
Right.
cash,
Drugs,
syringes,
Cash and
drugs, shanks.
Papers don't really.
So even if you look through it and saw stuff written down in my chicken scratch,
Yeah.
you probably wouldn't have picked up
No,
on it.
realised what it
Yeah.
was. Yeah.
Because that first time, once my aunt got it out and sent me word, she was home safe. It was on from there, then, wasn't it?
It was.
Because you could get reverse phone calls at that time. couldn't
Yeah,
you?
yeah.
And a ring, but they were paying.
No, I would call, and they'd get a message saying you've received a call from the Madison Street Jail.
Yes,
Right, that was a
yeah,
sign.
was
Press,
it.
this
Signal.
is £10 for 5 minutes. Press 1 to accept the call, whatever. So, and then she typed them up, didn't she, and sent them to you.
Yeah.
Do you remember the first one then? Deep shit.
Oh God, yeah.
Oh.
I had to put my
Deep
hand in the
shit.
toilet,
That was it. That
Oh,
was it.
yeah.
let the sewage through.
We'd been without
No running water
for
3
several
days.
days. Yeah.
yeah.
The smell. You could smell it when you were reading it. The stink of the shit. Yeah.
And sometimes the paper would be like crinkled, and it was your sweat, wasn't it? Because there was no air conditioning. They just had these swamp
cooler barely
coolers.
worked.
So, I mean, 140 degrees heat, wasn't
Almost
it?
50-degree heat on
So
the UK
he'd
scale,
be
120 in
sweating while
America.
he'd be writing them, and you could see it on the, you know. I mean, imagine what we felt like, really. It was heartbreaking.
But the blog itself became like a bridge to Shaun, because you
That's
could
what I
read
was
about
thinking.
his life in prison, horrible though it was. It still put you in touch with him
Yeah.
in a real way. So it was a magical thing in one way. It was
Yeah.
horrifying as well in the other way, but it was really good to do that and to be part of it. I mean,
Yeah.
I did type up now and again,
Oh,
but
you
I
did, yeah.
I put the blog up, and
Yeah.
it was a very satisfying feeling seeing it up
Yeah.
there.
Well, you felt
online.
as though you were doing something, didn't you?
You did.
You know, because
You
that's
did.
all you could do. We could only do what we could do, couldn't we?
And Shaun's was the first prison blog, because these things
Yeah.
have been said to have been done by prisoners before.
First
but they never
prison
had.
YouTube channel and first prison blog.
Yes, the first for everything, yeah.
Pioneer, see?
Pioneer.
The robot.
Yeah. So that was good, yeah. The
So
blog.
how did you distribute the blog then? Who were the first people to read and respond to it?
Oh, we had comments.
Yeah.
We did round robin emails to people, didn't we? We sent emails all over the
yeah.
place. I set up that other email address, didn't I? And we sent
right
the links
inside
all over the
at
place,
hotmail.com, yeah.
left, right, and centre. I mean, it got picked up by other people that were interested in blogs, that different kinds of media, because that was new then, fairly new, the blog itself. The idea of people doing blogs, ordinary people doing blogs, because we got a piece in that magazine. Was it Prisoners Abroad? They had a
Yeah.
thing. There was a piece about us doing. There was a picture of me at the computer.
Well, the
doing
first
the blog.
big one was Karen got it into the
Oh, that was
Guardian
that was
and
a
the
while.
BBC
Yeah,
piggybacked that, didn't they?
yeah.
Oh, what happened there?
That was when I was in the Supermax. That's when the media interest exploded.
Oh.
And ever since, that's just led to everything.
They put it in the.
There was a
G-
big
G-
centrefold, wasn't it, in
The
the
Guardian.
Thanks to Karen.
Yeah,
Yep.
with massive big
journalistic
pitch. Was the
contacts.
cockroaches on the pitch?
Yeah, on the front page of The Guardian,
It was
The
inside.
magazine.
they had
In
an
the
American,
magazine.
they had an American cockroach, didn't they?
Yeah. What's it
Yeah.
called?
Which became my
America.
logo.
America.
Periplantus
Periplantus,
Americanus.
That's the one. Yeah.
But then
think.
there was massive interest in it in the story. Then after that, wasn't
Yeah,
there?
it just didn't stop.
And you were in maximum security at that point?
No, I was in Maximum Security when it started. I was in Supermax when the Guardian and the BBC articles ran.
Were you not worried?
Well, I can explain that in a minute. Because once we were out of Sheriff Joe Arpaio's jail, we decided then to release my name because it was that jail that was the most dangerous jail in America.
Right.
Yeah. But before we jumped to Supermax, the sentencing hearing.
The actual hearing of
Oh my God.
sentencing day.
Yeah.
So, in America,
God,
That was one of the most
I remember that.
emotional and traumatic days of my life.
we did have a lot of expats, relations living in Phoenix at the time,
Yeah.
sisters, cousins, and so on, and friends, Claudia's mum and parents, and so on.
Yeah.
And everybody came to the sentencing hearing.
Why was it the most emotional day? Tell us how you felt.
My
Seeing
worst
us
fear
speak.
had always
This is
been
about
for you
us.
guys to find out what I'd done.
Ah.
So now I'm confronted with my sins in the sterile atmosphere of the courtroom. Everything is laid bare, and your parents are suffering, and it's just horrible. It's just horrible.
Yeah, but when they're reading these charges out, they're all those strange, peculiar, abnormal numbers. You wouldn't know what it was. You'd contravened subsection 2356. Remember, .8
State code.
It didn't say what it was. It didn't say Shaun had strangled someone.
Even the actual
Even that would have
charges
had a
were
number.
like conspiracy, crime syndicate. They're open to interpretation, aren't they? It's difficult for people
Money
to understand.
laundering.
Money
was
laundering.
the other
Yeah.
one.
It was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, though, get up and speak like
Oh,
that.
God.
Yeah, we had to
Like,
give evidence.
it
Not
was-
give evidence. To try and reduce mitigation.
If you've got strong family support, it's a mitigating circumstance. So the judge, he can aggravate your sentence or he can mitigate your sentence depending upon. And the prosecutor's putting all the things forward to aggravate it, and we're putting all the things forward to mitigate. And there's this battle then.
But you had to sort of really bare your soul.
Yeah.
And, you were sort of begging, really, and, it was just, you were trying, well, you was speaking, you were pleading, really. It was
The word
it was
that comes
so
to mind
traumatic.
is humiliation.
Humiliation.
It's very humiliating.
Yeah.
When I started off, what I ever said, it comes to something I'm studying before a judge in a court in the USA talking about my son and begging for mercy. It comes to something. That's how I started off, I seem to remember.
And then he said he would change trade places with me. And
I said I would stand in your shoes. Yeah, I said that's impossible, but I hope you show some kind of mercy on him. That's what I said then.
Yeah.
I had them all crying then when I talked about
Everyone started, a lot of people started crying.
When you were a kid, I said Shaun was into bird spotting. Nice, happy thing to do when you're about 12, 13, whatever.
Yeah.
And our next door neighbours bought this fabulous bird watching book. And we saw him one day walking up Hillview with this gigantic bush-stroke tree. With
an elderberry. An
elderberry.
I said, what the bloody hell are you doing with that? This is talking in the court as well. I'm saying this in the court, more or less. He said, well, this is going to attract butterflies, which will attract so-and-so birds. I said, what?
Yeah.
I said, get out of it. It won't live. He stuck it in the ground and it lived.
It did. Yeah.
So at that point, they were all, apart from the prosecutor, a lot of this, crying going on. It wasn't done for that reason. I just thought to bring up the human side of Shaun. And I mentioned,
even the stenographer, I think I was a bit misty-eyed.
They were all into it.
I also mentioned when Shaun was such an age, I taught him to play chess. Within about 3 or 4 months, he was beating me, so I wouldn't play him anymore. So we sent him to the local adult chess club at St. Bees, do you remember?
Yeah.
And you were beating them then, weren't you?
Yeah.
They wouldn't let you go anymore.
They wouldn't let you go anymore, they stopped you. So there was all this kind of thing.
And you said you'd heard I'd become a bit of a chess player in the jail as well.
Yeah, you were playing was it a grandmaster or someone that played with the Russian chess expert in the...
Yeah, in the beginning there was a Russian, but then Frankie became...
he was the one.
He was the one,
Oh, yeah.
That was further on though, wasn't it? So you try to paint this, try to normalise Shaun in the eyes of the judge and anybody else that's watching and listening.
Yeah.
And we did the best we could. And in the end, it was a result in a way, but we think it was already decided, didn't we?
It was a bit strange because the lead detective was gunning for a massive sentence,
and he was sat there,
and he was like,
Yes,
he'd been to all the hearings, like proper stalker. When I read the paperwork, he'd been like following me around for years. I'd be in an Indian restaurant, I'd be on the table next to me, listening to me.
He was obsessed.
Yeah, obsessed. So this was a big case for him, and so the plea bargain was 9.5 years. I was going to get sentenced to, but because I used this New Mexican mafia lawyer who was a loophole lawyer, I wasn't getting charged with class 2 felonies or class 1s. All that got dropped. I was getting charged with 3s and 4s. So I was going to get out at 50% of the balance I had to serve. And when the detective found that out in the courtroom...
They didn't know, did they?
No.
I don't think the
whole thing almost got cancelled.
Yeah.
So then, the hearing almost got cancelled. And I was like, I have to start from scratch.
You went berserk.
So then the prosecutor's saying a thing, my lawyer's saying a thing, prosecutor's saying, and the judge goes, right, I'll see you in my chambers.
Oh, God, that was terrible.
It was all touch and
We
go
fought. They'd flown all over from England, everything. My Aunt Sue was there and everything. Wasn't she flown from England? We fought then. It was all going to get cancelled. I was going to start from scratch.
We did.
While they were in that room.
We did. It was absolutely devastating, that, wasn't it?
Sue was living there at the time, wasn't she?
Oh, was she?
Yeah.
We just didn't know what was going to happen. You know, we were all sat there waiting for this, and we just didn't.
Well, we knew about
know.
this loophole that Alan Simpson had got. We thought, this is terrific.
But we didn't know how the judge was going to react to it, did we?
Well, we didn't know at that point that it had been already designed behind closed doors. But
without the detective's knowledge.
Without the detective.
But we didn't know that.
No, we didn't know that.
So we were like, oh, God.
None of us knew this?
No.
Yeah.
So that was then edgy.
That was some of the most... After all the crying and everything.
I know.
And then that...
Oh, the emotion was...
Oh, my God. The emotion was just off the scale then, wasn't it?
It was like pulling the plug.
It was crazy. It was like, we're going to have to start all... I've been battling the case for 26 months. And it would have had to just restart all over again.
I forget how long he was out. It was
madness. They were the longest seconds, minutes of my life.
It wasn't long, but it seemed like
I don't know. My head was just gone.
It seemed like a long time.
And then they come back in.
Because I think the judge must have just
said
this.
He came back in and he said, the plea bargain's going ahead, didn't he?
Yeah.
The judge ruled
we
the plea
all
bargain's
went,
going
we
ahead.
didn't know what he meant, although we should have done. What's going to happen?
Yeah.
What's going to happen? We didn't realise. And then Alan Simpson, I think, looked over and saw it.
Yeah. So I had three sentences. I had a 26-month sentence for my back time.
Yep.
And then for the balance of it, of the 9.5 years, I only had to do 50% on the balance of it, which saved me a good couple of years.
So when we found out, absolutely, all the family members and Shaun sat there were like hysterical. We were able to.
Hug
You
him.
moved
we
up.
went from
Yeah.
Moved up.
utter devastation
To
to
hysteria.
like we were like,
I couldn't believe it. He's going to serve another 3.75 years in prison.
Yeah.
That's great.
yeah.
But it's better than
I just got
Better
sentenced to
200
9.5
years.
years.
Yeah.
This is the happiest
Yeah.
day of my life.
And we all went
We went for
out
a celebration meal.
celebrating on the
Yeah.
night time.
And
then,
didn't the guard? I mean, the guard was so like mesmerised by the intensity of all. Didn't the guard let me stay in the court for a little bit?
He did.
Box, yeah.
Yes, he
Let
did.
you
Yeah.
come up.
Yeah,
up
he
to
let,
the-
he let you
Yeah.
come
all
up
of us.
to
You
us. And we
couldn't
could,
touch you at all.
Yeah.
We were
No,
very close.
but
And
he- yeah.
you couldn't believe it. It was just
And God bless Claudia. She brought all her family. They
She
Yeah.
did.
didn't her dad have a seizure coming into the
He
court?
did.
Did, yeah.
Outside.
All these things
outside.
that happened that
He
day are
did.
just.
He did. It was awful.
Yeah, he had a seizure, but he still came in.
He still came
And then,
in.
because
Yeah,
Lorraine's son,
Barry.
David, he was a manager at,
Oh, best keep any details out.
Yeah, whatever
keep
it
any
was.
details
No,
out.
no,
Yeah.
no.
and he just invited us to a meal over there. Cop, what they call it, comped or something. And,
Yeah.
that was terrific. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we all
God,
went
that
there,
was
a gang
such a
of us.
celebration. It was just the relief of knowing that we'd got a sentence and we'd got a time and we knew
Yeah.
there was going to be a date, an end date when he could come home, and the relief. It was just
Incredible.
The worst part, isn't it? You think of the rats, the violence, and everything else, but the worst part is not knowing
Not
what your
knowing.
sentence is going to
It's
be.
always
that
about
just
not
keeps you
knowing.
up at night.
Yeah.
So for 26 months, wasn't it? We went through that.
yeah.
Wow.
It was
Yeah.
just horrible, really, wasn't it? Well,
Yeah.
more than horrible. It was just a nightmare.
Yes, Alan Simpson did great winning the day on that one.
Oh, he did.
Yeah.
He did.
He did.
Whatever
he was,
you're, Alan,
he was a
luck to
good
you.
lawyer.
Lovely lawyer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alan.
Yeah, he was a nice man.
The prosecutor was joking, saying they were going to. When was he going to get his new Mexican mafia tattoos? When was he going to get patched in? Yeah.
Yeah, he did a good job.
Yeah.
a good
Yeah.
lawyer.
So that was the end of the jail then.
Yes, it was.
Do you want to just leave that there for today?
If
Because
that's
there's just so much more. We could just add on to other episodes.
yeah,
We've done 45 minutes.
45
Yeah.
minutes.
okay.
Flies,
Yeah.
doesn't it?
And we can remind
Yeah, we should
ourselves.
say something to all these people who think Shaun wasn't in prison.
Oh, yeah.
Podcast Wars.
Oh dear
Pod-
me!
I've checked, I've researched that one. He only did a couple of nights in jail.
Get a life for God's sake. Find
To-
some. Oh jeez.
To all these people who say this, that Shaun was never in prison or he was only there for 2 weeks, how I wish that was
Yeah.
true. How I wish we were
God.
making all
Dear
this
me.
up.
Yeah.
But this is the trolls, Mum. We've got non-stop love and support coming in all day long on all the platforms. The
Right.
trolls in the oven deserve
They
acknowledgement.
should know.
We should be thanking all the people who've been with us. I still get messages to this day on my YouTube saying, I was one of your blog
First
followers when it
supporters.
first
Oh my God.
started.
Yes, we should say.
I was on your
thank
YouTube
you.
channel when you had 2,000 subscribers.
Jeez.
Let's just
Yeah.
say a thank you to all of the people
Thank
who
you.
supported Shaun
Yeah.
and who continue to support Shaun through his ups
Yeah.
and downs.
Yeah.
Thank you. We do.
It's
we
good to read all the
appreciate
marvelous
it.
comments.
People
yeah.
curious as to how the YouTube channel came about, Dad. Wasn't there a video about Queen?
Yes.
The reason my channel hyperlink says Derick at
It's
is
because I started a YouTube channel a long time ago, and there are two original videos on there. Well, 3 I think.
and they're still on there if you want to see them.
Yeah,
You'll get an update
So
There's
Shaun
one where-
hijacked your channel.
in 2007.
it's mine. Mine, yeah.
Yeah.
So when we were on holiday in Tenerife, drunk one night, we're in this bar, and this Freddie Mercury singer from Wales wants a volunteer to go on stage to be Brian May. I'm up there with a wig and a guitar.
A big curly
So my
wig.
friend Paul films this. Oh, it's terrific. I'll put it on YouTube. So that was one. The other one is Paul himself, Paul and the Powerettes at your 60th birthday doing a dance with Karen
dancing, yeah.
and a friend Alison. So those 2 videos and
Yeah.
other ones on there as well. But I just started it off, and when Shaun was getting into putting stuff on, early clips from perhaps news bulletins and things.
We did remember that video, How to Survive Sheriff Joe Arpaio's Jail? I'm sat on the sofa.
Sat on the couch.
Was that 2008 we posted that one?
It was, yeah.
Didn't you put some music on it as well or something?
I think so, yeah.
It's funny.
Yeah, but some of them,
Everything's still on there now.
some of them early ones have got quite a few hits as well, haven't they?
Yeah, we had to take some down though because we had videos of like guards murdering prisoners in the jail.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I used to get you them
mentally
little
ill people
clips,
getting
didn't I? I
murdered.
used to get those
Yeah,
little
off
clips.
the news stories.
So that's how it started. And Sean, in the end, I
amazing
gave it
what
over.
went
I've got other ones now.
Yeah.
But I gave it to Sean rather than mither about with sorting something. That's why it's Derick at.
Yeah.
There it is.
So this is the end of this podcast then. And how can people support you and find your book and follow you on your socials?
Oh, are we back to blue plastic can?
No, just in general. How can people, find you and support you and get your book?
You're on Twitter.
I'm on Twitter.
What's your Twitter handle?
Barbara Attwood, no D on the end. Mr. D off when I was doing it. 15.
15.
Okay.
Yeah, and my Facebook is Barb Attwood Tiernan.
On Facebook,
on
your Facebook name,
yeah. Yeah.
And are you doing anything on the socials, Dad? Oh, you don't want people?
You don't want people.
No, not really.
All right, so
I'm
the
not
book.
famous.
The book. My dad's got a book in him. Everyone else is.
they?
My sister, my mum, everyone. We've all got books. My dad will be next.
Well,
So-
Karen wrote one, remember?
Yes, Girl with a Gun is my
Girl with a
sister's
Gun,
book.
Yeah.
And my mum's is Blue Plastic Cow. And it is available in all three formats now. The audiobook just went up. Lovely northern accent from our narrator. So you can find that worldwide on Amazon and Audible. And it is extremely highly reviewed. Probably one of the most highly reviewed books Gadfly Press has published. Yep.
Bum bum.
So we tend to finish with a group hug.
There we go.
Oh, dear.
hug the mic.
Spin the mics out the way.
Spin the mic.
Spin it.
Right.
There's the cow.
Oh, the
There's the
blue
cow.
the cow in for the hug.
Group hug. Yeah. Well done, everyone. Yeah, cheers. Thank you. Well done.
Thank you.
So it's my mum's birthday and we're going to do a prank on my mum because my mum keeps saying, Sean, you've only got 3-piece suits and you've only got track suits. For God's sake, will you show up at my birthday in some smart, casual clothing? So I told my mum, I'm going to go shopping for smart, casual clothing. I'm going to take Jen with me. I'm going to get some really stylish, smart, casual clothing. And she also wants a bottle of champagne. So we'll get to that in a minute. So I did go shopping with Jen for, there's the footwear.
Hugh Hefner style.
And here's the smart casual shirt. In my car, I've actually got a decent smart casual shirt, but I'm going to show up and pretend that my taste buds have drawn me to this and just get her reaction. I've also told her I've got an extremely expensive bottle of champagne. £5.
No Secco.
No Zecco, doesn't even have any alcohol in it. Just going to see how she reacts to all of this. So, stay with us. We're going to be with them in a couple of minutes.
Filming.
So we're in the car, about to arrive where my mum and dad are. It's my mum's 75th birthday today. We're in Stoke-on-Trent, going on a boat. And yesterday it was the anniversary, the wedding anniversary. So June 1st, June 2nd, the very special days. And I'm going to show up with a quiche kids TV presenters shirt, and we're gonna see how they react to this. Let's see.
Oh, I can't wait.
All right, let's get out. Hello.
Hello.
Happy 75th.
Happy 75th. He's making me film him in moments.
Smart casual.
You.
Finally got some smart casual clothes.
Going everywhere.
Oh, you look lovely.
Thank you. Happy anniversary.
Doesn't Jen look amazing in yellow?
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I got some smart casual clothes with the help of Jen.
Oh, wow.
Do you like them?
Does this happen?
What's with these shoes?
Look at the,
They're nice,
look at the
aren't
shirt as well.
That's a Davis shirt.
This is-
that, isn't it?
Is this what you meant by smart casual?
No, well, not exactly.
He looks ridiculous, doesn't he?
Isn't this smart casual?
I don't
What's with
understand
the
the slippers.
shoes?
I thought we met.
You haven't even took the price tag off them.
Jen, did you do this?
There's the go with the top.
Oh man.
Let's get you champagne as well.
Oh my god.
Jesus. Listen,
I chose it, Jen. Jen
just
chose the
hang
more
on.
normal
There's
stuff.
some logistics going on here now.
Here you go. Here's the champagne.
Ooh, right.
Have you ever had that one before?
No.
Nosy call.
Suitable for vegans. Nosy cow.
He's ridiculous.
Nosy cow.
Nose Echo.
Nose-
Alcohol free.
Oh, you've not brought alcohol.
It's a
Is that
joke.
for you?
It's a joke. First one is a joke. That's going to be a joke.
Oh, well done.
Is that your bottle? Where's our bottle?
Where's your
You're gonna have to
bloody
drink
shoes,
that
now. Not going round with
Can I go
someone's-
round with these on?
No, you can't go round with them, man. I think this is a joke as well. Thought so. He's going to put the real clothes on.
Oh, yeah.